Meet Michigan, written by David McConnell, art by George Rasmussen. Chapter 4, Lesson 2, Ideas to Explore. The War of 1812. The British and tribes try to take Michigan one last time, but they fail. Now Michigan is safely and firmly part of the United States. Control of the Great Lakes was a key to winning the War of 1812. People to meet: Oliver Hazard Perry, Tecumseh, William Hull. Places to discover: Monroe, River Raisin. Words to welcome: territory. A territory is land that is part of the United States, but not yet a state. 3 strikes against the British. Think about this while you read. How did the War of 1812 change life for the Native Americans around Michigan? The fight with the British was not over. Our country has fought with Britain twice. The first time was the War for Independence. General Wayne fought them a second time a few years later. Now there would be more trouble. What was Michigan like in those days? It was a land of thick woods and Native American villages. Fur trading was the main business. Some people here still spoke French. Detroit was the only place much like a city. There were hardly any roads here. Most people and supplies came by ship. Michigan was still not a state. The people here had no say in government. The President of the United States chose the person to be in charge. He named William Hull the first governor of our territory in 1805. Mr. Hull had a surprise when he reached Detroit. The town had burned to the ground. We have had enough. The War of 1812. The British were a thorn in the side of our young country. They stopped our ships on the oceans for no reason. They wanted Native Americans to attack our settlers. Finally, the United States became so angry it declared war. This war is called the War of 1812. However, our country was not ready, and the war did not go well for our side. The British made a sneak attack on Fort Mackinac, and they captured it. Was starting the war a mistake? Governor Hull became General Hull. He was put in charge of the American soldiers here. Now he and his soldiers crossed the Detroit River. They planned to attack the British fort on the other side. General Hull had almost 10 times more soldiers than the British. It should be easy to win. Then General Hull began to worry. He worried about the Indians. Many of them fought on the British side. Hull was afraid their warriors would attack Detroit. He feared what they might do. Lots of people lived outside the fort. They had no protection. The general went back to Detroit. The breakfast surprise. The next thing people in Detroit knew, British cannonballs were falling on their homes. One family was just starting to eat breakfast. A cannonball fell through the roof. It smashed through the table and went into the basement. It did not hurt them, but they left fast. A man climbed out of bed. He got up to see what was the matter. In that instant, a cannonball went right through his bed. Next, the British soldiers and Native Americans crossed the river. They marched on the fort. General Hull had his cannon ready to fire. His men were tense, but prepared. They would put up a good fight. Then General Hull surprised everyone. He told his men to give up. He wanted them to surrender. He did not ask anyone. People said, "What?" The men and women could not believe it. The British soldiers just walked in. They took Detroit and no shots were fired. People have often wondered, did General Hull do the right thing? His actions did save lives. On the other hand, Detroit was captured by another nation. This had happened to only a few American cities. The biggest battle. Other Americans did not give up so easily. They came from the south to take back Detroit. The British did not wait for them. They attacked first. It was the battle at the River Raisin near Monroe. Over 2,000 men were in the fight. This was the biggest battle ever fought in Michigan. Sadly, the British won. Lake Erie is important. Who will control it? At the start of the war, the British controlled Lake Erie. Their ships stopped any others. The British ships brought supplies to their army. The Americans were going to do something about this. Oliver Hazard Perry built some ships to fight the British. Finally, the British ships and Perry's ships went to battle. The fight was fierce. Cannons boomed. Bullets and cannonballs whizzed through the air. The Americans were not doing well. Most of the sailors on Perry's ship had been killed or hurt. The British thought they had won, but Perry would not quit. There was one American ship with almost no damage. Perry risked his life to reach it. He got into a rowboat and left his ship. Perry took over his undamaged warship. Then he sailed near the British ships and fired his guns. Believe it or not, Perry finally won. News of his success spread across the nation. Perry's win gave the Americans control of Lake Erie. The British were in trouble. They could not get supplies. They could not bring more soldiers to help. Remember, there were few roads in those days. Most travel was by boats on rivers or lakes. What did the tribes think? The British had the help of many Native Americans. One of them was Tecumseh. He hoped the British would keep settlers away. The tribes did not want American settlers here. They did not want towns started. They did not want roads built. It was their land. Tecumseh speaks. One time, Tecumseh heard of a new treaty between another tribe and the United States. That tribe got money for the land. He was very upset. In his own language, he said, "Sell a country? Why not sell the air, the clouds, and the great sea as well as the earth? Did not the Great Spirit make them all for the use of his children?" He felt the land belonged to all tribes, not just the one making the treaty. The Americans feared Tecumseh and his warriors. The British leave. Once the American ships controlled Lake Erie, the British left their fort near Detroit. Tecumseh heard about this and gave an angry speech. He told the British they were afraid. He said they were like animals running away with their tails between their legs. When he finished talking, all his warriors jumped up. They shook their tomahawks. Even though Tecumseh was upset, he went with the British. They headed east. They were marching across Canada. Before long, the Americans caught them. There was a battle. Then an American soldier shot Tecumseh and he fell dead. The British lost this fight. All of this took place in September of 1813. The British and the United States made peace in 1814. The British never touched Michigan again. With the British gone, more settlers wanted to move here. The British were still in Canada, so we kept soldiers in their forts just in case. What was Michigan like in 1814? It was hard to travel. Most goods came by ship. The government said between 5,000 and 7,000 people lived here, but that did not count the Native Americans. There were still many of them living here. Fur trading was important. There were some farms. Most of the land was covered by trees. Think about it, write about it. Number 1, what country did we fight in the War of 1812? Number 2, name 2 Michigan forts captured in the War of 1812. Number 3, why was Perry's victory important? Number 4, why did Tecumseh and other Native Americans help the British in that war? Number 5, Where did the largest battle take place in Michigan? Brain stretchers. How did the War of 1812 change life for the Native Americans around Michigan? Think like a historian. Choose Perry or Tecumseh. Tell how the person you chose affected the history of Michigan. Write about cause and effect in the War of 1812. What were some causes? How did the war affect Michigan? Take a stand. The Army put General Hull on trial after the war. This was because he surrendered Detroit. Take a stand. Did he do the right thing or the wrong thing? Support your position with a core democratic value. You may wish to include common good or patriotism.